Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of The Strangers, Chapter 3, which is the fifth film in the Strangers franchise, believe it or not, but it is the final installment in this so-called trilogy that started in 2024. We got Chapter 2 last year, and we rounded all off this past weekend with The Strangers Chapter 3. This chapter is once again directed by Renny Harlin, who directed this entire trilogy. Renny Harlin is a director who I grew up watching his films and enjoyed his films for the most part, going all the way back to A Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors. That was his first little studio film in Hollywood, American film, if you will. And I enjoyed that Nightmare on Elm Street, that Freddy film. Pretty good. Then we get Die Hard 2, we get Cliffhanger and The Long Kiss Goodnight. Those type of films that were just mainstays for me, that as far as 90s action films are concerned, pretty doggone entertaining, especially The Long Kiss Goodnight. I can still watch that. That is what I would classify as a quote-unquote guilty pleasure. I love that movie. Even though it isn't anything, no guilt involved in that, I love that movie. That was a really good movie with Gina Davis and Samuel L. Jackson. But as good as those films were, he made some stinkers along the way too. I mean, Cutthroat Island basically bankrupt a studio. You have Driven, that film with Sylvester Stallone, which was horrible. He's made some bad movies down the later half of his career. And so him taking on this property, Strangers, which the very first film I loved. I actually enjoyed that very, very first film in the Strangers franchise. Not in this trilogy, but overall. I really liked it, and I became a fan of it. And when they announced that they were going to do a new trilogy, I was like, okay, I don't see where you can get a trilogy out of this property, but color me interested. And so we got it. And the first one was like, okay, I took it as if, okay, this is a continuation. We know that we're getting two other films, because it started off pretty good, pretty interesting, ended on like a blah note. And so it didn't really check all the boxes for me. So we get to the second film, which came out last year, and it was a dumpster fire. It was horrible, completely horrible, and didn't know why it existed. Which, under normal circumstances, I would be like, I'm not going to watch Chapter 3, but I had to watch it because I watched the first two. I had to complete the set. I couldn't just leave it hanging like that. Maybe we can be redeemed with the third and final movie in this trilogy. Let me just say like this. The movie was better. I mean, leaps and bounds better than Chapter 2. But that's not saying much. Actually, that's not saying anything at all, because this movie is still bad. It's bad. And it it sparks a larger conversation. It sparks the conversation of why on God's green earth did they decide to make 3? Why did they make this into a trilogy? The story that was told over the course of 3 films could have been wrapped up in one movie. One. They drugged this out. I guess if studio had the bright idea, hey, I know how we can make buku money off of this nothing franchise, because it shouldn't even have been a franchise. It should have been a runoff. One film and let it go. But no, that's not the case. We got 3. And it's genius I'm not knocking the hustle because it's genius, because they're making buku money off of this. Now, it's not going to blow the roof off the box office. We're not talking Avatar numbers here, but in comparisons on what it costs to produce these movies to what it's going to make overall, oh man, they came up big time. I respect the hustle. But for the one who's being hustled, a la me and you, I'm mad. I can't do anything but sit here and be mad because I got duped. This is one of the most pointless trilogies I have ever laid eyes on. Nothing about this screamed a trilogy. Nothing about this screamed a movie, period. We've seen the story. Now, the fact that we had to wait 3 movies to get a origin of sense is ridiculous. It's this film in particular, because that's the one we're reviewing today, chapter 3. This film told the origins or the backstory of our serial killers here. This group here, I think they're, what's their name? Scarecrow, Baby Doll, or is it Baby? Oh, Dollface and Pinup Girl. That's the 3. For what? What made the original Strangers film so good? You didn't know. You didn't know anything about them other than the fact that they just picked on this couple, terrorized them, traumatized them, and then just ultimately killed them at the end. Spoilers. But it was like, that's what made it so good, because it's frightening when you don't know the villain, when you don't know their story or their reasoning, their motives. That's what makes it frightening. And for the most part, you don't know here either. Even though we get the origins, so to speak, it still didn't tell you nothing, which makes you wonder why they split this into 3 movies. So ridiculous, man. This was bad. Now, what made this one more entertaining than the others, it was, at least it told a story. This did tell a story. Like I said, they told the story of the origins of all 3 of these killers and their motivation, so to speak, or if you want to call it that. I'm trying not to spoil it, even though who cares about the Strangers, but I'm not going to spoil it. But it's like, what's the reasoning behind this film? The style of filmmaking here from Renny Harlin, who directed this movie. We got flashbacks throughout this movie, and not in a creative way. We'll get a scene in the present, the decent little scene, and then all of a sudden is abrupt stop, and then it flashback 12 years ago. And it tells that 12 years ago story so slow. It just stretches it out. It's something that could have been explained in a throwaway line or whatever in the present. We didn't have to go back and watch this. This is dumb. And it was done several times in the movie, not just once or twice. It was done about 3 or 4 times throughout the movie where we got these flashbacks that didn't really help move the story along at all. I did not understand this. I don't understand it as a whole. As a whole, all 3 films. But the 3rd film suffered because of that. I think this would have been a nice little standalone throwaway movie, without having to bounce all around time to tell the story, without the benefit of a time machine. Our lead actress here, why is she even in the movie? I mean, the lead, she had nothing to do. When your lead has nothing to do, it's a serious problem. I mean, serious problem. The main character who we followed, not through 1, not through 2, but through 3 movies. We get to the final showdown, the final film that's going to wrap this up in a nice shiny bow, did nothing. There was, I would say, 60% of this movie, she was just sitting, tied up, with her hands tied up. That was it. Not talking. No dialogue. You can count on your hand how many lines of dialogue she had throughout this film. There was nothing going on. Absolutely nothing going on that helped her character. It did. The final resolution at the end was like a slap in the face, a complete slap in the face. If you followed her and cheered her on and encouraged her to fight back, it's a slap in the face at the end. It was worthless. It's infuriating. The few positives I have are when our killers get a couple, they go on a killing spree. That's the only good thing about it. Sadly to say, when they actually execute their goals of killing a couple, those scenes are good because that's what they're there for. There's no other reason why they're there. And so the tension and the dread and the horror of that particular moment was there. And so that's the positive. Aside from that, this movie has absolutely nothing going for it, but at least it's over. I hope. I hope this is it. The Strangers Chapter 3, the final film in this new trilogy, gets a letter grade of a D-. And I don't know why I'm so disappointed and upset, because I wasn't expecting nothing from this. And I got less than nothing. I guess that's what it is. I got less than nothing. I didn't think that was possible, but here we stand. What did you think of The Strangers Chapter 3? Did you watch this entire trilogy till its completion, or did you just say I'm out in part 1, or didn't even bother? You're the smart one. I'm not even gonna rock my brain with one of these movies. God bless you, because you're smarter than me. I would love to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of The Strangers Chapter 3. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.